Judges have something different.
My name is Bob Listenby. I'm a child advocate. I work in the city and county of Philadelphia, trying to find better ways to improve the lives of children.
All right, you're recording.
Okay. Now, just that again. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, my name is Bob Listenby. I'm an attorney. I work in the city and county of Philadelphia, trying to find better ways to improve the lives of our children.
Okay. Now, Bob, recently your wife published her first book. Tell us about her book and about your experience observing her going through the process.
Well, it's one of the most positive experiences that I've seen her have during the 24 years that we've been married. She's very excited about writing it. My wife is a very good writer, but she needed that space and time in her life where she could focus on writing her story. So she began actually several years ago taking photographs of the place where she used to live down in Columbia, South Carolina. And she ran across a book that you published, Why Not Prosper, I believe is the book. And so she talked to the person who had the book published, and she found a connection to you, and she thought this would be a good place to work because it's a Christian-based publishing company. And the person who had worked with you really just had nothing but positive things to say about the publishing company.
So now, as an outside observer, you saw your wife, craft a story and go through the editing process. And tell me, from your perspective, how was that experience for her?
Well, one of the most important things that I saw happen was that she worked with Sister Powell. And new writers, from my point of view at least, often feel that they're a little reluctant to have someone edit their work because they're trying to maintain their voice in the context of their work. They don't want the editors to come through and stamp it with their point of view. They want their voice to come through loud and clear, the nuances to come through, particularly nuances of childhood, something that only a person who had the experiences can really understand. So she wanted that to come through. Sister Powell was kind enough to sit for hours at a time, working with her on her publication to make sure that my wife's voice came through, and also that it was edited in a way that would meet the high professional standards of your company.
Okay. Having seen your wife's experience, how do you feel about the possibility of publishing your own?
Well, like many writers, you procrastinate for years before you actually publish something. And so I've been in the procrastination stage. So I have to wait till I actually get to the point where I have something before I start making pronouncements about it. But certainly a lot of what happened with my wife's publication really I thought was very positive. I'm very inspired by it. Really like the cover. I like the final product. It really does look good. And my wife's sisters and brothers and my family who've looked at it and friends from church who've read it have barely been inspired because it looks good, it feels good, it reads well, and it really gets her point of view across very well.
Okay. But now, you and I have talked about some of your life adventures, and I find it very difficult to believe you don't have 10,000 things that you can sit down and almost off the top of your head get down and write it.
I'm blessed to have had, to live really an extraordinary life in the sense that I was given lots of opportunities to do things that many young Americans have not had a chance to do. I've hitchhiked all over the world. As an exchange student in high school, been to places as far away as Russia, China, the Far East, lived in Africa, lived in Alaska, worked on a pipeline and things like that. So I've had a lot of interesting experiences. I look forward to the time when I can condense those experiences, find the interesting sides of them, and tell my story. I think there's a story for other young people who might aspire to be a lawyer one day and learn about the path that you have to take if you want to become successful in any profession. I think that's a part of the story that I have to tell.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing you and your voice on paper because, like I said, based on your experience, I believe you do have a lot, especially for this younger generation, because I think in many regards, they don't realize all the opportunity that's available to them, and I think voices like yours could inspire them to reach out beyond their limited vision to a much broader vision. I want to thank you for your time, and again, I thank you for lending us your wife's voice and getting it in print. and I look forward to yours as well.
Well, thank you for the wonderful work that you've done, Pastor Woods. Thanks for answering all of our questions during the process. That was really important because a lot of times when you're in the midst of doing something brand new, you haven't had a chance to do it before, there are just a lot of questions. If they don't get answered in a positive way, then you kind of stall in the process. But my wife's questions were answered, and she was inspired. And right now, she's inspiring me and lots of other people in our family to think about how we can get our story on paper. So we'll be back to you as soon as we make a little progress, but we don't want to promise what we can't deliver. As soon as we can deliver, we'll talk to you further.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
See, first of all, yeah, that's just,
That's-
I really do. I appreciate that, man. I thank you very
Well,
much.
you know, that's the reality. We really appreciate you
Yes.
and also you as well for the cover work that you did in the graphics. And, they really make a lot of difference, and everybody who's looked at the book has really said, look, this looks really good, and we're excited about it. So we thank you for all the time and effort that you all put in. And, you know, she has a couple more books she's going to publish, and so I'm encouraged.
Yeah, I was just looking at one, the excerpt she printed out for Pat for her children's book.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully in 2018, she'll get 2 of them done. That would be my encouragement to her. She
Amen,
hasn't
amen.
decided what she's going to do.
Amen,
She will
amen.
let us all know when she decides.
Okay. She's like me.
Or he's
She's like me. I've got 2 books out. I've got 3 finished that we haven't published yet.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, one will be out first of the year, and the second one will be out shortly after that. I've actually written a fiction book, historical fiction.
What's the subject?
In the book of Numbers, Moses sends Joshua and 11 other guys into the promised land
Yes.
to spy out the land. Well, Numbers tells us they go in, and then Numbers tells us they come out. Numbers don't tell us what happens. So I've written a book about their 40 days that they're spying out the land. Yeah. It's called Young Joshua and the Assassin's Blade.
Wow.
And I forgot to tell you. Yeah.
You mentioned it.
We've been fighting. I've been battling the title for over a year now because I finished the book almost a year ago, and I couldn't move forward because I couldn't get a title. So, ironically, a character who was supposed to, for all intents and purposes, have a cameo in the book ends up being one of the predominant characters in the book, and so much so that when
Character wrote his own piece.
he
after
wrote
start.
his, thank
That's
you.
what characters do. Once you
Thank
bring
you.
them alive, they actually
Thank
live.
thank you. I'm not a sick person. The character did it. Thank you. And what happened is, even to the point where I was about to terminate this guy, Pat and my wife
You can't terminate the character. They
screamed,
tell you when they're ready to die.
"You cannot kill this guy." Listen, he's in my sequel. I've actually started writing the sequel. The sequel is called The Harlot of Jericho, and it's about Rahab. And I got the assassin is in this. He's of course much older now, but
He lived to a second book.
yeah. And the connection between the two basically Joshua's 2 visits to the Promised Land is interesting. Yeah, the connection between them, between the 2 stories.
You call it the Promised Land.
Yes,
S-E, correct.
yes.
The name of my novel that I'm writing is Mississippi, Going Home to the Promised Land.
Ooh, nice. I like that already.
And it's a story about, in this nation, we're always just one step away from some pathogen taking over and killing millions of people.
Oh yeah.
Because we had the Great Migration north.
Correct.
My book is about a pathogen, and people decided to go south to survive it, and they moved back to Mississippi in large numbers.
Oh
And
man,
then they
write
take-
it, brother, write it.
They take over the government down there because by sheer numbers we are now the majority, and so we've come back. And then we develop a society based upon our own values.
Oh,
And
write it.
control several states. Then we begin to push that back on the federal government because we're in a different position. And so Mississippi going home to the promised.
Come on now. And have you outlined it yet?
I've done a lot of work on it.
Have you?
Yes, I do. And it also has the elements of a major love story.
Okay.
So
Okay, good,
characters that are
good.
involved.
And see, that's the, it's interesting because I never thought I'd be doing fiction. And once I actually started it and started to, research the nuances of fiction and all that other kind of stuff, I was amazed at the elements of good fiction. That love component is important. I mean, that's one of the things. You got to have something going on. Like when I did my Joshua, here's the thing. We know Joshua from the book of Joshua. But my premise was this. That's not how he started out.
Well, given that Saul and Paul kind of started different and ended different.
Right, correct.
Saul was there and then became Paul, so
Correct,
people
correct,
do start
correct.
off different in the
So
Bible.
right, so my young Joshua is not the warrior Joshua, but I address how he becomes that.
Well, that's important. I mean,
'Cause, that was my story arc. I wanted to have a story arc that took Joshua from here to here. But I also gave him a backstory that kind of wrote itself. Because how do you take 12 guys who basically share similar experiences coming out of slavery, identical culture and everything? You expose them to the same environment, yet I'm not stunned about the 10. I'm stunned about the 2. Okay, because the 10
That's not bad.
responded
actually not bad.
based on their shared culture, history, and understanding of the events they got
Just get him
exposed
to
to.
move over
So
just a
something
hair.
had to happen to the 2,
There you
not
go.
to 10.
Maurice, it's your turn up here.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for you.
Yeah, you up
So,
there.
because I hear you, and I think that those are the backstories are really, people don't wonder about them, but once you start telling them, people understand that based upon biblical stories,
Correct,
that,
correct.
that the backstory is very different from the way people end up.
Correct. And so I did a lot of research, and because even though it's a fiction piece, I wanted to have some historical relevance in the book itself, because I don't want somebody to, even the names. I did even the Canaanite names. I did. Well,
I understand what it takes to the historical research
Well,
you have to do to make it come.
yeah, well, I discovered
to
they
be
had-
sufficiently accurate so that people see it as having context and historical
correct,
context.
correct.
Exactly, yes.
And that was fun. Well, see, I'm the guy that likes doing the research anyway. I like the research more than the book, because I just love that stuff. I love it. I love it.
Have you ever read a book called The Alexandria Quartet?
No, but I will. Thank you to mention it.
The reason it's interesting is that it's one story told by 4 different people, each from a different perspective. And so, and the voice throughout is a writer who named Darby, I think his name is, who observes all of this and then gets the stories from each person. And he, of course, has to go down to a certain location and to be able to write the story. So he's in some isolated location down by some riverbank somewhere,
Okay.
writing the story based upon his experiences as they were told to him by these 4 different people.
Nice.
And the interwoven story is so fascinating that
Okay.
I love the books. They're 4 separate books.
It's 4 separate. Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why it's called the Alexandria Quartet.
Okay.
The first one is called Justine. I think the second one is Balthazar, and it goes on.
Okay.
So, but anyway, I found it so interesting that I wanted to have that story told from different parts.
Oh, wow, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, somebody call Cajun Kate's,
Oh, well, I can't
What time
do
they
that.
close?
and tell them we're coming.
What time do
They close at 8, but they stop the fryer at 4. Somebody
Oh, that's
call.
why.
Yeah.
Tell them I'll be there in an hour for some
Terry got
catfish.
Terry. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I couldn't see you for the pillar.
Yeah,
I
Cajun
didn't know
Kate's
you
on
stood
Philadelphia
right
Pike. Tell them we'll be there
You need
at,
to go
at
there,
about
you
5
guys.
o'clock.
there.
And I want some catfish. Keep the fryer rolling. All right, Maurice, you're up.
Oh, they know you like that, huh?
No, they know Terry.
Oh.
Oh, please, Terry, go in there and smile at him. Jack, they throw extra fish in the thing and everything.
All right, we are.
So anyway, it's good to see
Okay, let's get rolling here.
Yeah. We're gonna make him laugh.
Drive all day.
Yeah, we're gonna be done. Yeah, we're gonna stop with Maurice.
In the pocket.
No, you haven't done yours,
Stop
Pastor.
with
Huh?
You haven't done yours.
I'm not gonna do mine today.
You got to do it. I got the logo up. We don't have to
Well, you
change.
got the logo up for him.
No.